We are live. Hi, everyone. Good evening, and welcome again to another episode of Across the Border series. I was thinking about this today, and I realized that we have actually done the series. Today would make it 8 weeks consecutively, and it's been amazing. It's been amazing having to do this with you all. Thank you once again for joining the session today. If you're coming to this channel for the very first time, this is the Grow with Mo channel where we talk everything personal development and we teach you how to be better and how to be more than what you are right now. And if you're joining, of course, for the first time, please do not forget to subscribe to this channel if you haven't. Click on that subscribe button. All right. So today, um, I want us to, we're having a little tweak from what we've been having since the beginning of this series, where we have been talking about how you can thrive in various countries. Um, for those who are looking to relocate, we've been sharing practical tips that can help you to survive in different countries that you possibly would think about relocating to. But today we're having a twist to it, and we're talking about relocating to a place that you probably would never think of. When people are looking to relocate out of a country, especially in Africa, we typically think of relocating to the West. But there are actually some places in Africa as well that we can explore and we can have a good life. But of course, you wouldn't know if you're not told. So we are in this session today to talk about Namibia, a country in Southern Africa, and we have an amazing person today on the call who will be speaking to us about Namibia and opening our eyes to the beauty of Namibia and why Namibia could be a place for you to consider in your relocation quest. So I'm going to run very quickly through his profile because, of course, I wouldn't want to bring someone like a Mervin and not talk about who is sitting on the session with me today. So Marvin is a visionary leader. He has over 14 years experience in the mobile telecommunications and technology industry. He has excelled in various fields and um, I mean, sorry, he has excelled in various fields, and he has a reputation in communications, and is a UK-based organization recognized for. Sorry, I think I'm mixing this up. He served as the director of communications for a reputable Pole International, a UK-based organization recognized for listing Africa's most reputable leaders. So if you're thinking of Africa's most reputable leaders, you have one sitting right here in front of you today in this session. And Marvin, I would also just want to add this. Marvin is Mandela Washington Fellow in Business Leadership from Rutgers University in New Jersey and a public relations executive for the Namibia US Alumni Association. I'm sure now you know from this profile, even if I did not go ahead and read all the profile, that you have someone with value that can be delivered today in this session. So, ladies and gentlemen, join me as I welcome Mr. Marvin to the call. Welcome on board.
Good evening,
Welcome.
Magdalene. How are you? Thank you for having me.
I'm very well. Good to have you, and thank you for doing this. In Nigeria we'll call it collabo, this collaboration with me.
As
Thank
do
you.
we, as do we.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so like I introduced during my introduction, we're talking about Namibia today, which I had also mentioned isn't one of those countries that would readily come to the minds of people when they're looking to relocate um to another country. And I believe that one of the reasons why it probably would not come to their mind is because they don't even know much about Namibia. So today we are throwing that light on Namibia and helping people to understand what Namibia is as a country. So could you please, tell us, for somebody who doesn't know what Namibia is, information about Namibia that you think anybody on this call should know?
Thank you for the question. It's a loaded question, but I think it will be important for us to set context.
Yeah.
Once again, thank you for having me. Good evening to everybody online. Um, like Magdalena said, my name is Marvin Muenje, and so the conversation really starts from the learnings I've had as somebody staying in Namibia, and and of course how we interact with these different facets of our society. So I think I had the opportunities that I got because ultimately I believe that I'm a vessel for the Lord, but also because being intentional is ultimately a trait that a lot of people that stay in Namibia should have to actually want to thrive. And similarly, I think anybody trying to come to Namibia needs to be very intentional. I think it's something that cannot be mistakenly miscategorized because you will come to this country and you will be misaligned, and understand you, or you'll get the back end of what the best intentional people that want to move to a different country get, basically. So I think when we speak about stuff like the political stability in Namibia, Namibia is also known for having such robust governance structures, which makes us fairly stable. And a lot of people are attracted to that because when we look at what we all want, in with the countries, we all want peace. Most of the time, we want a country where your views are respected, where you can live with your loved ones, and where economy delivers for you. So that's at the tenets of a great economy, and Namibia offers that on a very high degree.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I'm already seeing your fans dropping comments, dropping comments in the chat
Yeah.
area. Thank you so much, all the Marvin fans, for joining the live. And I'm pretty excited to be having this conversation about Namibia. I believe I'm also going to be learning so much about Namibia, at least for the first time. So let me ask you this very tricky question. If you have the opportunity, if you're handed over a visa from the Western countries to say, Marvin, I think you should relocate, take this visa with ease, would you go?
Well, yo, um, you must have a very good reason to want me there, to over me to go.
Mm,
I don't think it's not a easy decision because there will be a lot of considerations.
yeah.
But of course, sometimes we have our various life journeys, and if your vision allows you to take up such an opportunity, you probably will. But let me humor you and say that I do take the opportunity like that. I think one of the big things that I'll need to consider is the political stability of the particular nation that I should move to. That will be a consideration that will be important. Also, where are they on the, so I grew up in finance. I traditionally have a
Mm,
background finance for what I've been doing for the past 10 years in telecommunications. So you are not remiss to think about what will be the financial impact. So you look at stuff like currency fluctuations, what are their rankings when we look to IMF ratings and all of that, and how it might either overtly affect you, whether overtly or covertly. So these things happen. But also, I think one thing that is important is adaptability. So you would like to see that if you entrench yourself into the society, are you able to adapt to this new environment and make sense of it? So I think you look at the difficulty in that process, and that then informs whether I'm going to do it or not. But definitely Kenya, Nigeria, if I am given the opportunity. Ghana, they are beautiful countries with such emerging economies. The
mm,
people are passionate. They're so passionate there. I had the opportunity as a Mandela Fellow to engage with incredible leaders from 53 different countries. There are around
yeah.
700. And you realize how diverse we are, but uniform in purpose. And I think you realize wherever you are, if you are intentional and you have a clear vision, you can make it work, even in Namibia.
Amazing. I'm going to pick two things before I go into the next question. One of them would be that I mean, you are now saying one of the things that most of our previous guests had said, and that is the fact that there is something common to everybody to be able to thrive anywhere they find themselves, including Namibia, and that is intentionality. It means that if you're looking to relocate to any country, whether the West or African countries, there is a need for you to be very intentional. There's also the need for you to be very clear on what it is you're looking to achieve. Then the second thing I'm going to draw from your last comment now would be that for you to say you are not going to, just willingly accept the visa, except you think about one or two things, it's an indication that Namibia must really be a good country enough for you to not want to just live like that. Yeah, that Namibia is
Correct,
treating
correct.
its citizens really well. Now, because you're a citizen of Namibia, you may have this experience. Would you say that immigrants in Namibia also have this kind of experience where they think or they believe that Namibia treats them really well? Is there any sort of difference in how immigrants are being treated in Namibia?
Well, the one thing that you would notice, Magdalena, should you one day make the decision to come down, is that Namibia has a very pragmatic society. So we are a cluster of different people from different countries, different traditions, cultures. And Namibia has one of the post liberation policies that really inspire reconciliation. That trait has filtered through into our society. So you'll see
Yeah.
that whether you come as an immigrant, you come into Namibia, you will not be treated very dissimilar to somebody that is a citizen of that country, because firstly, it's not top of mind. Where are you from? Because we know that
Yes.
Namibia is made out of society with diverse cultures, people that have moved for one or the other reason. So there is a balance towards the treatment that you will receive moving as a foreigner to Namibia. And there is, of
Yeah.
course, certain things we look at when it comes to having employment or education. But those are certainly the reasons that people look at wanting to move to Namibia. So you look at whether you can get work permits, education permits, and that ultimately also makes or forms part of your decision making process. But
Okay.
it's
So
not going to
are you
be
saying
very
that getting
difficult for
okay? Okay. All right. Sorry, I didn't know you were still speaking then. So would you say
yes,
that
sorry.
for an immigrant, getting work permits, getting education permits is quite easy for them to attain when they come to Namibia?
It is possible. It does take some time because there are various checks that needs to be done.
Yeah.
The proof of accommodation, proof of that there is income that you will be receiving, that you will not be a burden to the economy. Those are the sort of factors and checks and balances that are in place on our end, which I think is similar in most of the countries, because you don't want to burden like your current civil society with um,
Yeah.
people or immigrants essentially, and not have a plan for them, so that because we are using taxpayers money to make certain decisions, and it affects the overall stability in a country. But those checks and balances are in place, so it is fairly straightforward, but it is not without some duration, some investigation, to see if you will be a contributing value adding person to the Namibian economy when you ultimately come to the country.
Okay. Amazing.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this. Everybody believes that African countries are great countries to be in, but we have a common problem, and that is a problem of leadership. But with the things you've been saying so far about Namibia, it seems like Namibia does not have the problem of leadership. Or is it a case of Namibia has policies that um, active policies? Because I mean, having a policy is different from having a policy being active. Is it like they have active policies that guides Namibia to a point of stability, like you have described, or it's just a case of at this time Namibia has a good government?
Great question. So let's see. Um, Namibia recently elected its first female president. So that's on a national
Wow.
level, but it ultimately it permeates throughout our society,
Yeah.
the ethos of leadership. And then I must also put a disclaimer that, of course, it would be unrealistic to assume that a nation like Namibia, where the unemployment rate is a big chunk of the national population, and it is a young population at that, that we do not have our leadership challenges. I
Yeah.
think societies that have these tendencies, although not perfect, but are done in a way that still perpetuates that behavior maliciously and intentionally, meaning our leadership is still flawed. But I think Namibia has very stable leadership, and I think that has been the conversation when you look at even the political history in Namibia, where we prided ourselves on peace and stability. So we have people that rattle the boat, but we try and maintain that conservative nature. But I think that has also shed a lot of light on the sort of leadership that we have about, do we have people that is the problem, or is the system the problem? And when people come into the system, do they become like the system? Or do we not have enough transformational leaders that can change the conversation and the agenda? And I think that wave of leadership is really being noticed right now in this current arena that we're in, or in this time and space that we have in Namibia. And obviously, that shapes the global perspective that you, for example, Magdalena, would have of Namibia, because then you can see that there is clear policies and rules and laws that addresses uh, crime, that addresses movement in the country, that addresses how we sell our resources, and what we deem important economy builders for Namibia. That helps you make the decision. I'm going to go to this country. They clearly have a clear goal about what is their vision and what are their national development plans. Um, but it also comes down to, is the leadership a leadership in a country that can actually help me grow? And you need
Yes.
to take that decision into account for your family as well, and what it will mean for them.
Yes. Amazing. Thank you so much. I mean, listening to you talk about Namibia, especially what the society looks like, it sounds like a very, very peaceful society. Now, would you say that somebody who is extremely driven, I'm going to use we Nigerians as example, as an example in this case now. Nigerians are very, they're very rugged. Like we are go-getters. Let me put it that way. We want to, we want to always chase goals, achieve goals and all. Would you say Namibia is a place for someone like that? Or somebody who just wants to, I don't want stress, just a peaceful life, just make my money, is that what Namibia is?
I I had the honor of working with a few of such individuals from Nigeria, and you would see their experience is universal. They think we're a little
Yeah.
slow for their liking, and that a lot of our policies and
Yeah.
regulation, it hampers innovation because they move fast. Um,
Mm.
I've had somebody that opened up a music business here in Namibia, and I wasn't part of the business, but I could see their journey, and you realize that they want to move at the speed of light, what they've replicated in other African countries, but there might be laws and regulations that stifles that possibility, whether it's visa applications, work permits, and how that whole process simulated into the current business model, if they have time for it, because it can be time consuming and it
Yeah.
requires you to have a lot of liquid as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Marvin. So at this point, let's talk a little bit about the immigration path to Namibia. Somebody who's looking to relocate to Namibia. What are the paths that they could use to come to Namibia?
I think, like we mentioned earlier, the sort of visas that you would typically see would be work visas, would be your study visas. And then, of course, there are those that are obtained by citizens that have stayed longer than 5 years in Namibia. And of
Yeah.
course, that gets more complicated or more easier based on the number of years you've been in the country and how you're able to ensure sustainability from your end. Um, and I think I'm not, and I would be, and I'd do a disservice to you if I gave you
Yeah.
everything I think, but I think there is a rigorous process that that is applied to actually get an approval for a visa. And however, there are great relationships between our two nations. And
Okay.
generally, you would feel that most of the policies um, are geared to firstly protecting you as a foreigner on foreign soil, but also that you're able to thrive.
Okay. Let me ask this very interesting question. How powerful is the Namibian passport? I mean, in the world ranking, how
Oh,
powerful is the Namibian passport?
I did not anticipate that question. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being top tier, I would place us at a good 7. And I think there are people online that might disagree with me or might agree with me, but I think we're a good 7. Particularly when you look at the countries that operate in Southern Africa, um, and then you compare it to the rest of the continent. Yeah, so I'd give it between, yeah, 6 and 7. But it is also like it all starts with the perception that people have of your country. You mentioned in my bio that I worked with the Reputation Poll International. They are a leading
Yeah,
UK organization. They are a reputation management firm. They rank the
yeah,
most reputable people in Africa in banks in Africa. So they really have a structure and a criteria that really goes into the heart of society, and I think that speaks to how the global north or the rest of the continent really understands the work that you do and the reputation that your country has, which makes it easier and difficult from a governance perspective. So people would ordinarily really consider Namibia as a very stable society, high ranking in terms of not a lot of our visas are rejected, and people are not known for really causing an uproar when they come from Namibia. Not that we are without fault, of course.
yeah, of course. All right, thank you so much. So, let's talk about the business people, for instance, who are looking to relocate to Namibia. What are the business opportunities that you think somebody who wants to relocate to Namibia that wants to explore can consider?
So Namibia
Like the
has
businesses that thrive in Namibia.
yes. So Namibia has a very sophisticated economy, but that was replicated because of obviously who our colonial powers were and who took over in the interim, and then we adopting the systems and just introducing new broad-based economic guidelines that would sort of inspire transformation in our society. But it has
Yeah,
traditionally been, people that have taken the time to invest in services like financial services because it is such a sophisticated market. You can enter into it. It of course there are a lot of regulatory hurdles that you need to go through, but it is fairly sophisticated in our digital transformation journey and closing that digital divide. And typically there is a portion of your society that can uptake a certain amount of digital transformation, and after that you need to sort of diverse your revenue streams, and typically a lot of them go into financial, yeah, a lot of high value investment growth boutique businesses. And essentially you would also get a thriving economy in a lot of value chain businesses where, and in our case that's a lot of supply logistics, where you bring one part of the continent to Namibia and Namibia to a different part of the continent, and being part of that value chain has really been a business case in Namibia that has seen an increase in interest but also an increase in yield, um, with regards from a revenue perspective. What has also been prevalent, Magdalena, is that Namibia, there's been a lot of chatter with our new oil rig discoveries, the possibility of green hydrogen, ammonia, sort of ecosystem that can be built, and that Namibia is a valid business case for the world. That
yeah,
conversation is very, um, it's naturally it becomes unstable if there are no clear objectives, and no clear return on investment sort of case studies. But I think the country at large has really shown the world that we are ready, we are bold, we are audacious, we're willing to do this if they bring their resources over and we get into these partnerships that can see both our country and, of course, their businesses grow. So it's an investment case. You don't invest. I think a lot of investors would tell you the first rule of investing is you don't invest in a tool you don't understand or in a commodity you don't
Yeah.
understand. But I think the way Namibia has really positioned herself globally, whether it's from a tourism perspective, an agriculture export perspective, from a diamond perspective, it has really fared well against a lot of even countries we would ordinarily assume as big players. So I
Yeah.
think that really helps us put us in a good place that certain governance structures, although not perfect, and I will emphasize this, we still ensure that Namibia has a great business case. And there's a lot of people and agents in the country that work towards achieving that objective.
All right. Thank you so much, Marvin. So I hear what you say, and for me, I want to just draw it to tie it to immigrants. So are you saying that these business cases also um, give room for immigrants who are looking to, be a part of this ecosystem of your value chain? Does it give them room to operate with the level of freedom that a citizen would have, or do they have some level of restrictions if they decide to want to be part of the value chain?
The system is, of course, designed to be very difficult to anybody trying to enter it, so because of competition. And so whether it is a local citizen or an immigrant coming into the to a certain ecosystem, it's going to be a challenge. But I think to answer your question, Magdalena, the tenets that we had at the beginning of the conversation, being intentional, but also there's I'm trying to think if there's a more polite way to say what I want to say, but
Yeah.
in the heart of trying to be an ethical capitalist, Namibia, as conservative as we are, we don't have a broad-based understanding from our youth perspective and understanding how a lot of businesses and industries work. We get used to, and I think it's something that's entrenched to our education system, where we we go to school, you're taught what people want you to know and want to understand, and we become people that live in those societies. And a lot of there might be a small mismatch between what is taught to young ones in schools at a young age and what the economy actually offers. So we get into the participating economy and we realize that a lot of what we are told about how businesses operate is information that is led. Now, a lot of foreigners have that perspective of understanding how to move goods around, how logistics work, the tenets of, for example, a digital financial economy. Although we leapfrogging into it, that from a national perspective, that perspective still hampers what young people in the country perceive as important roles. So that gap allows a lot of immigrants with that vast knowledge, experience, that global perspective to come and really market in those areas. Um, but of course, we try and do that cross cultural pollination of education so that when they come in, we ensure that there's a Namibian involved and that skills transfer can happen sustainably.
Okay. Thank you, Marvin. We're wrapping up the session very soon, but I want you to talk about the cities, or would I say the areas in Namibia that people who are looking to relocate should consider if they're looking to, find their footing really quickly and thrive really well in in the economy. What areas in Namibia would you would you suggest that they should consider?
So for business people looking to relocate to Namibia, you'd look at what is the primary core of your business. So if you run a predominantly agriculture strong business, you would look at the northern part of Namibia. part of Namibia. If you have something to do with agriculture, you'd look at the coastal part of Namibia. If you have a more services based business, you would look at the capital city and so forth. So essentially, it will depend on the type of business you have. But when we look at big attractions in terms of cities and towns in Namibia, you have Windhoek, which is the capital city, a great business hub. You have four of the big commercial banks having huge footprints in the capital city, which makes your business, the infrastructure to ensure the sustainability of your business much easier and better. But then, of course, we have cities like or towns like Swakopmund, which is coastal, which is very old German infrastructure, and it also has people that really attracts it to it because it gives them the 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 semblance of abroad as well. And I think, and then of course we look at the more southern part of Namibia. We look at are you in logistics? Is it easy to ship your product to the south of Namibia from South Africa and have your hub there? So I think it is really driven by your business. But Namibia essentially has one of the best road transportation networks, and we've been praised for it as well. So that part really motivates a lot of foreign-owned businesses to come operate legitimately in Namibia from a logistics perspective. And of
Thank
course that
you.
goes into which town you live in and how easy it is to ship your product around the country and so forth.
Okay, thank you so much, Mami. Let's tone it down a little. I think we've been a bit too serious, so let's just water the whole thing down a little.
Cool,
So talk
cool,
about
cool.
talk about the fun things in Namibia. Somebody who is saying, even if I come to Namibia as an immigrant, and I want to, relax, have some fun. What are the fun things that you guys have in Namibia that they should look forward to?
I thought you'd never ask.
Thank God I did.
Yes. Um, um, 'Cause so Namibia has incredible rich history, and we have various ways of showing that and celebrating that history. I think there is, of course, Namibia having the oldest desert in the world, and also having that relationship between the desert and meeting the ocean. I think a lot of people would deem that as that serenity as fun. But also we have a very thriving social infrastructure in so a lot of people, there's, we've got a wide variety of restaurants. We've got one of the best hotel and hospitality infrastructures in Africa. So we have, geez, it means I should travel more in Namibia. But, we have there is no there won't be time for you to be bored in Namibia. Let me just put it like that. We have a great religious system as well, where your spiritual needs are met as well. I think that is something very important to highlight. Namibia is predominantly Christian society, and that that principle from the Bible cascades into a lot of the operations of our society, and how our law works as well. But um, this is we're pretty safe, which I think is a great attraction to Namibia because a lot of people at some point, despite the thriving economy, despite the thriving social life that a person can have, you want safety.
Okay.
Yeah,
Are
thanks.
you done? Okay. All right. I was thinking you were probably frozen or something. All right. Thank you so much, Marvin. This has been an amazing time with you. Um, okay, let me quickly read this from the chat area. Someone said, "Good point, Marvin. Immigrants are increasingly finding success within Namibia's value chain, particularly when their ventures are established in partnership with Namibians." Okay, thank you so much. Let me talk a little bit about that. Are you saying that um, for ease of success for an immigrant who is looking to do business in Namibia, they need to partner with a Namibian to succeed? Are you saying that they can't, on their own, um, push an idea for a business and succeed without so much hassle if they don't partner with a Namibian? Is that the case?
That is the ideal case, Magdalena. That is the ideal case.
Okay.
But there are businesses that are thriving right now in the Namibian economy that don't necessarily have a Namibian ownership structure from a shareholding
Okay.
perspective.
Okay.
So there are those companies that have a presence in Namibia that are thriving, that have not necessarily partnered with somebody from Namibia. But the reason that is important, apart from it being legislated, is
Yeah.
just the ease of business. It must be for somebody to come into Namibia and have a partner that understands that economy, the people, the nuances of that economy. You wouldn't want to just come in because your product or your business work in a different economy, that would translate into success to Namibia. So you would want to party with somebody that knows the land, that knows how to
Yeah.
speak and allow you to create the necessary relationships with key stakeholders that will allow our business to thrive. So I think that is been the spirit of why the purportation of having a Namibian onboarded in your business. And but of course,
Yeah.
not only from a BEE perspective about just onboarding somebody from Namibia to ensure to tick box that you have collaborations between Namibians, but also from giving skills and allowing Namibians to buy into these businesses so that there's equal liability, because that is so important and it drives a lot of decision making, but also equal rewards for Namibians that partner with foreign institutions. There's been a huge uptake in terms of conversation from our digital eco space and how they have
Yes.
been really working with a lot of tech companies in Africa and abroad, brings digital market money market services to or mobile digital money services to the country. There's also been a lot of chatter about foreign-based internet service providers and how we can stay on top of the curve as like a server, right? I think that has also been an important conversation in the country, ultimately.
Thank you so much, Mervyn. I had said we were wrapping up this session, but it's looking like the chat area is on fire. So,
You are
one of
bad
the
to
things
me,
I like to
Marcelette.
do, because it's a live session, I also like to ensure that those who are joining live and are maybe asking some questions and all, we're engaging them as much as possible. But I see somebody really selling Namibia as selling Namibia so well. Someone is like, Namibia has everything you will ever need. We have the coastal, the digital, all sorts of tourist attraction sites, animals, and all. Good one. Thank you. The person also said Namibia is ranked third most safest country in the world. Mm. Well, maybe not in the world, but third most safest country. Thank you so much for that information. Someone is asking a question. This person is from Uganda. He's saying, as a Ugandan, I'm curious what strategies as Namibia used to position itself so strongly in all the sectors, and how could countries like Uganda tap into similar approaches to boost global visibility? I know you're not a political person, but is this something you can answer for us?
And the person asking the question, we call him Mr. President, Patrick.
Oh, okay. Okay.
He's a Mandela fellow as well. I'll get him back for this
Oh,
question.
amazing.
But but Don, I think thank you for the question. It's so important. I think that a citizen of a country enjoys. So remember from our previous conversation that how you build a strong country is how you build your strong societies. From societies is how you build strong communities and ultimately families. Um,
Yes.
so that culture really cascades throughout the entire nation. But what has been important when I look at the approaches that Namibia has used to build that visibility is really positioning itself as a very politically stable safe haven for a lot of people. I think it is really underplayed how important political stability is in decision making, and how the global world, or the global north, and of course the rest of Africa, perceives Namibia. So your reputation really precedes you as a country,
Yes.
and becomes that first brand marketing tool that a country uses to get people to be interested into moving to this country. So how you the how the international community really perceives Namibia is one important. So we are very deliberate about how we curate the information about Namibia so that it speaks to selling and positioning the country on its best merits. When we look at stuff like governance structures, um, it's ensuring that we really highlight the work that we do in the governance space, the opportunities for people that are excellent in sports. Do we have a thriving sports ecosystem that can really celebrate those that wish to participate in that ecosystem or into that fraternity? Our rule of law, I think that is such an important consideration that has really allowed us to position us as a very attractive um, country in Africa. So, because the rule of law ultimately is the basis of which we govern our countries, and if there is clear independence of our judiciary, and those tenets of our society, it really allows Namibia to thrive. And I think those are some of these approaches, the investments we've placed in our judiciary, in our policing system, in our education, and yes, so that are some of the approaches, focusing on what are the problems, because there's this one fire, and sometimes what happens is we run and put all our resources into killing this one fire, but other things like health, education, us those are other fires. So the government needs to sort of deploy a lot of resources to ensure that we still maintain best practice in how we run our country, but also addressing the people's most pressing needs.
Okay, thank you so much, Marvin. I'm sure I'm not going to say this again. I initially said it's been an amazing time with you. We're wrapping up the show, and I'm about to say it again. And I promise you, it's the last time I'm going to say it.
I
So
believe
thank you
you
so
this
much,
time.
Marvin.
Thank you,
Thank you
Magdalena.
so
Thank you so
much.
much.
Thank you. So it's been a pleasure having you and sharing your thoughts and insights about Namibia. Like I said, I've learned a lot, and I'm sure that those who have been following this session had also learned a lot about Namibia that I probably never knew before. And to the very engaging audience, I want to say a very big thank you. Thank you so much. There's somebody really bragging about Namibia. I just want to thank you. I mean, the person is saying Jesus lives in Namibia. Amazing. I didn't know that. I didn't know Nigeria is not accommodating
It
Jesus,
does, it
but
does,
it's
it
okay.
does. Also,
Thank you so much. All right. So at this point, would be wrapping up the session. And if you have not subscribed, please do not forget to subscribe to the session. Thank you so much, Marvin. Thank you, everyone. See you again in our next episode. Bye.
ciao, ciao. Thank you, Magdalena.